Hello there, I am Laminjai and this is News Review. Coming up, the European Union Ambassador, Mr. Attila Lahos, is my guest today, and I will be asking him about EU-Gambia partnership, undocumented Gambians living in European countries, and the contentious issue of homosexuality. Also coming up, today is the Day of the African Child. Speaker of the Children National Assembly of the Gambia, Honorable Sarata Sise, speaks exclusively to the FATU network. Watch out for that interview with the 16-year-old. There also, the approval of a security deal between the Gambia and Turkey by National Assembly has been delayed after it was sent for special scrutiny. These and more coming up, but first we'll quickly go through the papers there. I have the Standard with me. I also have the Point, yes. Let's see what the Standard is saying. The lead is saying we will not allow imposition of gay rights. That's a quote by Dr. Ismaila Cisse. There are 2 new COVID-19 cases registered. Prisoner claims impotence from torture. I stand with Imam Baba Lee, ex-TRRC lead investigator. Government spends $5.8 billion in 4 months. Despite the broadside made by a critic that Citizens Alliance was pro-gay, a top executive has said despite its progressive outlook, the party does not condone or promote homosexuality. Speaking in a Standard exclusive yesterday, Dr. Ismaila Cisse said, "We will not be in a position to encourage, promote, or support any activity that is against our laws, religious, and cultural foundation. As a country, we have to be clear here. The right of every Gambian is guaranteed by the Constitution, and as long as you don't violate those rights, you don't have any issue. When it comes to the issue of gays, the government must stand its ground. It cannot let any outside power impose things like gay rights on us." That's Dr. Ismaila Cisse there. The Minister of Health has yesterday confirmed 2 new COVID-19 cases, taking the total number of cases in the country to 30. Well, that number has now jumped to 34 after the confirmation of 4 new cases today. Prisoner claims impotence from torture. TRRC witness Samba Doro Bah yesterday gave a chilling testimony of how he was tortured by a team of police officers, leading to his impotence. Bah, an inmate serving life imprisonment, said the torture session was led by former police commissioner in Basse, Famara Jalo, CID officer Omar Dumbuya, PIU officer Mendy, and police driver Konyaji, something like that. Yes, I stand with Imam Babali, ex-TRRC lead investigator. Since the breaking of the news that the National Human Rights Commission, of which he is a member, had called on government to defend the rights of LGBT persons, critics have now come down on Imam Babali like a ton of bricks. But one prominent Gambian has bucked the trend. Former lead investigator at TRRC, Alaji Sedi Barrow, has said he stands with the Kanifing Estate Imam there. Government spends $5.8 billion in 4 months. Finance Minister Mamburin Jai has disclosed that the government spent $5.8 million between January and April 2020, almost $2 billion more over the same period last year when government expenditure was $3.95 billion. Yes, that's it, the Standard there. Let's see what the Point is saying. Inside Alpha Robinson's Nawek, that's their lead. Also, Raudatul Majalis condemns in strongest terms protection of gay rights. Gambia confirms 2 new COVID-19 cases. Well, it's now a new 4 cases have also been confirmed. Armed robbers strike in Upper Salem, escape with 4 million CFA. Father arrested for incest. So according to the Point there, armed robbers are reported to have struck at Kermeka Wolof village in the Upper Salem district of the Central River region and made away with 4 million CFA plus $80,000. The Point has been reliably informed. A source that spoke to our reporter, that is the Point newspaper reporter, there on the condition of anonymity, confirmed the development. The Point. The suspects, our source added, were 7. Raudatul Majalis condemns in strongest terms protection of gay rights. Sheikh Kadi Abdullah Kante, Vice President Raudatul Majalis, has weighed in on the controversial gay marriage topic in the Gambia, calling on the Muslim Ummah to rally against the shameful practice in the strongest terms there. Kante's remark was in response to a recent campaign by European Union and rights groups for the protection of gay rights in the country. Well, is that really the case? I have the European Union ambassador who will join me a little later today to talk about some of these issues there. So Also, a stop press on the point is saying that SN Brussels will resume service effective 22nd of June and 3rd July 2020 as a trial in bringing passengers to and fro. This agreement will be reviewed to see if it still fits continuation in the face of COVID-19 pandemic. Official sources have told the point there. Also on the point, police in the Kanifing municipality have arrested one daughter, Keita, for allegedly or reportedly having carnal knowledge of his biological daughter. The point has been reliably informed. The suspect, as at the time of gathering the report, was detained at the Bundung police station as investigation into the matter continues there. Pretty much that's it for the papers. We'll be right back. Now, 16 June each year, the world celebrates Day of the African Child, a day set aside to cast greater attention on the plight of children across the continent there. This year, UNICEF, the UN Child Agency, is calling for greater effort in ensuring justice systems are child-friendly. Mati Sangor reports.
On child. We also have a new Ministry of Women, Children and Social Welfare. So we have numbers of key milestones that the country have celebrated and have achieved.
UNICEF says it welcomes the setting up of a children's ministry in the Gambia amid effort in ensuring the rights and development of children retains importance in policy decisions.
I think all government can do better. It's not only the Gambia, but I already highlight few good achievements. So having a ministry for children is really a good achievement. Having a national commission on human rights which have a component of child is really a good achievement. Having during the TTRC the child voice, it's a good achievement. Again, I highlight the mixed data where we also can see improvement. Are we happy? Yes, because we need to celebrate good achievement. Are we happy enough vis-à-vis of the right? No, we have again too much to do. Currently with the COVID, we can see, for example, that children are in the street. This country have a law against child labor. So in the day of access to child-friendly justice, I think it's important that the law is reinforced. The children should not be used as child labor. So this is a room where we can do better. We also have, in terms of the social workers, we don't have enough workforce in the country to be enough at the community level to protect and prevent. It's good to take care, but it's better to have a prevention approach. So it's work in progress. The ministry is new, so we'll continue to work with them.
Children in the Gambia continue to face all forms of problems that affect their development, and UNICEF is calling for greater efforts and child-friendly just life system to ensure their unhindered development. Reporting for Fatu Network News Review, I am Mati Senghor.
So still on the Day of the African Child there, as the Speaker of the Children National Assembly of the Gambia, Honorable Sarata Sisi, has spoken exclusively to the Fatu Network. She spoke to the 16-year-old, spoke to Jaka Sise Jaite moments ago.
Sarata, it's great to have you.
Thank you very much.
How are you?
I'm okay.
Good.
Sure.
So, how important is this day of the International Day of the African Child?
Thank you very much for inviting me here. It's indeed a great pleasure. Like the Day of the African Child, it's very important, or it should be very important to every child in the Gambia, or in fact in the world, because this is a day that we reflect on the issues that the children in Soweto had faced, the murder that had been committed in South Africa, and then it's a day that people or children come together to speak out for their voice to be heard, and then to emphasize that the rights and welfare of children should be respected in society or in the state.
Great. So
Sure.
this year's theme is access to a child-friendly justice system in Africa. What do you make of this theme?
Well, it's when we say justice, the theme is emphasizing that what happened in South Africa, Soweto, shouldn't repeat itself, because what happened there was terrible, and if that happens to repeat itself, then it's going to be
detrimental.
Yeah. So this is what I think the team is mainly trying to emphasize to the world.
Okay. So in your statement, you touched on the TRC and said it is important to remind ourselves the need to pay special attention to children who were direct or indirect victims of human right violation. What has the Children National Assembly observed so far in terms of how the TRC has been handling the issues of children?
Well, the TRC, they're doing very well, and the children whose parents have been murdered during the former regime, it has come to our notice that those children have been given scholarship. So that is a very important thing. That is to encourage them, for them to forget their past, because it's going to affect those children either physically or mentally. So therefore, what TRC is doing is very important for those children, because if you do such for children, it's going to cheer them up, and they will forget what happened. Yeah. Sure.
So how important do you think children are in the society?
In the society, we all know that children are the future leaders of tomorrow, and as future leaders of tomorrow, we are very important, because we have to go from one state to another, and we are the ambassadors of tomorrow, and just to summarize it in a nutshell, we are very important for the fact that we are the ones that are expected to change the future, and people are looking up to us, to do something in the future, which is going to be very, very, very initiative, and then people are going to appreciate what we do, and it's going to be more of what is happening now.
Okay,
Sure.
great. So, what do you think the government should do? What do you think the government should do in ensuring children in the Gambia are protected and safe?
Well, as NAC, or Children's Parliament, what we want the government to do is to implement laws, because we have very, very nice laws in the Gambia here, but they are not being fully implemented. And we have the Children's Act 2005, the Women's Act, and other acts here that the government said they're here to protect the rights and welfare of children, but those are those laws are not being fully implemented. So what we want the government to do is to implement those laws, and then put in strict measures to anyone that violate those laws, to be punished or to face the consequences.
Great. So finally, we are in the COVID-19 pandemic, and children are the most vulnerable. Do you think special programs and projects need to be created in ensuring that children are safe?
Sure, COVID-19, it's impacting a lot. But the government is doing very well for the fact that they're sharing food items to families, and that is to assist children. Yeah, and like the projects that we expect is like, you know, after COVID-19, we expect that like the environment is going to change, because COVID-19 is a lesson. We have learned a lot from it. Exactly. So like it should be like after COVID-19, we expect that the environment is going to be conducive for children to live in, and then we expect like after COVID-19, children are going to be free from any form of violence, and then like government is going to do something towards the empowerment of children.
Great.
Sure.
So to your fellow young people, or your fellow young children that are watching you, what message would you like to put across to them?
Like I always I have this word that I believe in, that it's people that make people people. So like what I would like to tell them is to keep on learning, focus on their education, and then like to advocate for the right and welfare of children, and then like let them not give up, because in life you have to do something to get something. So like children, as we said, they are very vulnerable. So what I will tell them is like to focus, and then if anybody violates their rights and welfare, they have child protection units where they can report to, and then like let them stay home and then be safe.
Stay safe. Thank you very much, Sarah.
Amazing young girl there. So now the approval of a decades-old security deal between the Gambia and Turkey would now have to wait after National Assembly members on Tuesday agreed to send it for special scrutiny by the National Assembly's Select Committee on Security and Defense there. Umiso was at the National Assembly and she came through with this report.
The session was convened to consider and ratify the agreement between the Gambia and Turkey on cooperation on military field of training, techniques and science, signed on 5th May 1991.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, the government of the Gambia has a long-standing bilateral relationship with the Republic of Turkey since our independence. The relationship continues to be consolidated, developing into diplomatic ties aimed at promoting stronger economic and security collaboration. This led to the signing of 4 agreements between the government of the Republic of Turkey and the government of the Republic of the Gambia in the areas of military cooperation. Honorable Speaker, on 5th May 1999, a cooperation agreement was signed again towards establishing and enhancing cooperation in military field of training, technique, science within the framework of the authorities defined by national legislation. The agreement spelled out areas of possible cooperation which will serve as the umbrella for any other agreement between the 2 countries in military cooperation. Honorable Speaker, this agreement comprises an exchange of personnel, materials, equipment, information, and experience in the following fields of military domain. The first is military training and education, cooperation between the 2 infantries, i.e. land forces, cooperation between naval forces, cooperation between air forces, where applicable, of course, cooperation between gendarmerie, national guards, military, technological, scientific development, invitation of observers to military training exercises, logistic cooperation, cooperation on defense industry, cooperation on military health service.
The proposal was, however, met with another proposal. The Deputy Speaker, Mamadou Sane, who also doubled as chairman of the Standing Committee on Defense and Security, asked that the request be taken to his committee for proper scrutiny.
I just want to inform this august body that as member or as a chair of the Standing Committee on Defense and Security, I would propose, in collaboration with the Office of the Clerk, to make it very quick so that our committee can be assigned to look into this thing within the shortest possible time, come with a report and lay it before the National Assembly for adoption.
The National Assembly member for Serekunda was forced to agree to Sane's proposal.
I would concur with the proposal made, with the motion made by the chair of the committee, but adding to it, if the chair also would agree, because this motion, looking at the agreements and the protocol, do not appear to be very bulky. It is something that we can look at. And Honorable Speaker, you'll see agreements that have been signed since 1991. What does that mean? That is why it is important to go into the substance, because if you look very quickly, you will see certain agreements lapsing within 5 years, which means every 5 years it seems something ought to be done. So that is why it is important to go into the text, into the content, and guide the National Assembly so that we know that maybe we are not ratifying what has been ignored for 20-something years. Maybe there are ways of doing things that are clearly indicated in the text. And Honorable Speaker, I would say that even if the committee is allowed, immediately after this session, the committee could meet and work on the report, and if the Assembly would entertain any day within this week for a presentation, we should be able to work together to do that.
Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Marie-Jacques Denson, concluded that the motion be referred to the said committee and that the committee should report back to the Assembly as soon as possible, preferably 23rd of June 2020. Reporting for the Fatu Network News Review, Umisol.
Thank you. My name is Lamin Jai. The European Union has been forging fresh relations with the Gambia since the overturning of the dictatorship some 3 years ago. EU-Gambia cooperation over the past 3 years, the European Union has managed to become the country's biggest development partner there. The EU ambassador, His Excellency Ambassador Attila Lahos, is my big guest today. We will talk about EU-Gambia cooperation and other issues really that are quite significant and important to the EU's relationship with the Gambia there. Mr. Ambassador, thank you very much for coming to our studios. We appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me. Always a pleasure.
So your union over the past 3 years has been trying to forge fresh relationships with the Gambia. This started way back in 2017 when one of your top officials, Mr. Mimika, that's Navin Mimika, visited the Gambia. That was what really launched the fresh relationship there. Talk to us, take us through this relationship, this newfound relationship within the Gambia and your union.
Thank you very much. Indeed, the union I am representing has been a staunch supporter of the new Gambia since the beginning. As you mentioned, rightly mentioned, Commissioner Mimica, who was then responsible for international cooperation and relations, he was the first Westerner to come to the new Gambia in February 2017. And then we discussed a long range of issues with state and non-state actors at that time, and the European Union decided to support significantly this democratization process. And this is because we believe that the elections were fair and free, and the Gambia has decided. So we decided to allocate sufficient assistance to the new government. And this is because for any country in the world coming out of an autocratic kind of regime, a dictatorship as you phrased, the challenges are tremendous. It was extremely important to make sure that the new Gambia, the new democratization process will not collapse because of the heritage of the former regime. And that's why at the time of 2017, the European Union promised significant assistance in the forms of technical assistance, in the form of project assistance, but also in the form of budgetary assistance. Every year we disburse a certain amount of money. We are talking about somewhere between 20, 25, 30 million euro as annual disbursement, budgetary support for the government. And what we promised, we were very proud to be able to keep. Let me just also recall a significant year, 2018, when the European Union organized and hosted, in collaboration with the Gambian government, a so-called international conference for the Gambia. others are referring to it as a donor conference, where additional financial support beyond political support was also triggered. And in that conference, the European Union also topped up its support. So in a nutshell, we can say that between the period 2017 and 2021, the European Union has pledged a total of 365 million euro worth of complex support, roughly 1/3 of which is actually budgetary support. Now, this was the situation up until now. We intensified the partnership in all aspects of it. We managed to intensify political cooperation. Just to name a few results out of that, for example, the Gambia is joining the European external economic agreement with West African countries. Gambia was the 15th country out of the ECOWAS region to join this. It provides for a lot of opportunities in the future. We also concluded a European sustainable fisheries cooperation agreement with the Gambia last year. And indeed, practical cooperation on different files when it comes to representing the same or similar values in the international theater, in the UN and elsewhere. These were also opportunities for enhancing this political partnership, making it a meaningful political cooperation. Now, beside the development assistance, also we try to enhance the trade relations between the country and the region. But I'm also here to say that some of these processes are not something you can fix from one day to the other. It's a process, it takes time. For us, from a European Union perspective, it's amazing how much the Gambia has achieved over the past 3 years in a peaceful, democratic manner. I do hear people, I do understand that the average Gambian may not feel this when he goes for shopping to the market. But on the other hand, I do believe the democratic transition, which is not for a couple of years' time, it's a much longer process. If one looks at the achievements of the transitional justice in general, but like the Truth and Reconciliation or the constitutional review in particular, these are amazingly positive stories. So from a European Union perspective, as long as the Gambia remains on this democratic transition, the European Union wants to be a partner and wants to support these efforts because these are tremendous efforts. On the other hand, we do believe achieving good governance, rule of law, human rights, this is something we really are here to support, and we very much look forward to continuing this collaboration. Of course, now we talk about collaboration at a time when we all are impacted by this pandemic, which of course puts us into a totally different situation.
Mr. Ambassador, the EU side of the bargain has largely been centered on providing financial assistance to the Gambia. This, I mean, we started way back in 2017 when you first agreed to give Gambia over 70 million euros there, and that this continued. Now the amount of money that your union has given to Gambia runs into billions of dollars, or at least 300 million euros, if I believe. But on the part of the government of the Gambia, or the Gambia, if you like, what has been the expectation? What was the Gambia expected to do, the thing specifically, so that EU would also keep to its own side of the bargain by giving Gambia money?
Indeed. The Gambia, when decided to change the government in 2016, the Gambia elected this government on the platform of change to roll out several necessary reform processes. We mentioned partly the TRC or the constitutional review, legal reform process, security sector reform process. These are the processes where we agreed with the government that they will embark on these changes. And this is not what we dictated. This is what the people demanded from this coalition, who won the election, and eventually from the government. Now, in these processes, whatever support we deliver, and let me just emphasize that the 365 million, which was the total amount of EU development assistance rendered to the Gambia is not entirely in cash. 1/3 of it, roughly 130 million, over the period of 4 years between 2017 and 21, and that's the component which was foreseen to be in the form of budgetary support, which is indeed cash from the Treasury to the Treasury. The rest of the intervention is in the form of technical assistance and different project interventions, all supporting, aiming to support the national development plan of the country. Now, this government, from our perspective, this government had a program. And this government included in their program different reform actions and reform avenues where we believe that's the right way to go towards democracy. Therefore, for us, it's not a question whether we really wish to support or not. We feel obliged to support such a democratization process. Now, for every development assistance program, project, or budgetary support, there is a contractual basis. So we agree on certain activities, we agree on certain benchmarks, and if those are met, then support is delivered. Just to give you one example, back in 2017, when the country was almost financially collapsing, it was extremely important that the budgetary support the EU disbursed, 30 million, comes the soonest. If I recall, it came somewhere in summer 2017. Now, preconditions was, for example, the release of political prisoners, because I believe this is something the new government could easily do. This is something serving reconciliation, but also serving the delivery of justice. And every year when we had disbursement, because we did have budgetary disbursement every single year up until now, and even this year, there was always a set of benchmarks jointly established with the government to make sure that they are supporting the democratization process, but they are also defined in a way that they are achievable. The European Union doesn't have an interest in saving the money we promised. We have an interest of executing the budget and delivering on our promises. When it comes to project support, this is a bit more complicated issue in the sense that a budgetary support is a disbursement. It's a financial transaction between a few banks, whereas you have a project which has got an implementation period. So it was also important to establish the relations on technical level in a way that all these project interventions, when they are scrutinized, when they are audited, when they are instructed, directed how to roll out, in this overseeing mechanism we have representatives of different beneficiary partners, whether it's state actors or local communities or other beneficiaries. I think this is the only way we can deliver a project which not only achieves objectives, but also ensures that the receiving side buys in, which means they also identify themselves with the project goals, and thus we can make sure that the project result achieves will be sustainable.
Yes. Yes, okay. Now, then let's talk about the donor conference that the EU, because since you are talking about the democratization process, this government really took over at a time when this country was really flailing economic-wise, and then this donor conference that was in 2018 that was organized with the help, of course, with your union in Brussels, 1.4 billion US dollars.
1.4 billion euro.
Euros, sorry. What happened to that? Because people are saying that that conference actually failed because the amount of money that have come into the country has not been much at all.
Please allow me to disagree. I don't think that conference failed. What was the purpose, the objective of the conference? To trigger further support for the Gambia. Now, this 1.4 billion euros, which was a total of the pledges from all over the world, also including the additional pledges European Union or some of the member states made at the conference. We kept record of all these pledges and we handed over the set of pledges to the government because they are the ones supposed to look after and follow up with the single individual countries or states or organizations who made a pledge to see how they are channeled into the country. One thing is sure, out of this 1.4 billion euro, roughly 60% of these pledges were loans. Only relatively only. 40% of the pledges were grants. The difference is that with the loans, you have to pay some additional cost with it, whereas the grants are free money, if you wish. Now, all the European Union support and pledge were in the form of grants. When it comes to Gambia, following up on these conference-triggered pledges, the Gambia had certainly a difficulty because they were not in a position to take up additional loans. Therefore, they had to concentrate on the grants. As for the state of play in terms of channeling into the country different grants, I don't have statistic data. I only have data for what the European Union pledged, because the others are belonging to the other countries, so you will need to ask the Finance Ministry for that. What I know, and as far as I know, European Union as a whole, as well as some of those EU member states who made a pledge, they are in the process of being delivered. Some